How does annual leave work as an NHS doctor? That is a really good and really important question. Now, as ever, I'm framing these videos as if we're talking about the 2016 junior doctor contract, as it will apply to most doctors that are starting working in the NHS in August. Obviously, individual circumstances may vary slightly, so always join a trade union and always seek individual advice if you are not sure. At the start, you were entitled to 27 days, or 3 weeks, of annual leave per year. After 5 years service in the NHS, now this does not have to be training contracts, the circumstances can vary, but after 5 years NHS service, this extends to 32 days in a year. And this also gets adjusted pro rata with your individual working agreement. So if you are perhaps less than full time and you work less hours than that, it gets adjusted to compensate. Or indeed, if you are working on a contract that is due to last less than 12 months. For foundation trainees, those that will rotate every 4 months, the expectation comes with that you will try and split your annual leave equally into 3 9-day chunks. That is, you in theory get an allowance of 9 days per rotation. So now let's talk about some of the practicalities. This video is about how annual leave actually works. How do you get it? How do you use it? We need to start with the position that both you, as a newly employed doctor, and your employer have a responsibility to make sure that you use your annual leave. And while your employer has a duty to be reasonable and agreeable and make allowances where they can, the responsibility ultimately is with you as the doctor, as the employee. It is up to you to request your annual leave and take the allowance that you have. It's not up to your employer to remind you to take it, if that makes sense. For doctors working in the NHS, a period of 6 weeks in advance is recommended when requesting your annual leave. This isn't a hard and fast rule, this is advisable, but generally speaking, you should be telling your rota coordinator and your workplace as early as possible if you know that you're going to need particular dates off. Life-changing events are built into the contract as a situation where, as long as you have given the required 6 weeks notice, then they must be accommodated. Now, to get into the weeds a little bit, it gets more complicated because of the way that your pay is calculated. Annual leave can normally only be taken instead of shifts that do not attract enhanced pay. What this means in the simplest terms for you and me as ordinary jobbing doctors is that you can only request annual leave on normal days. That is to say, not night shifts, not twilights, or basically any situation that would take you outside of normal working hours for the purposes of the contract. If you want one of these shifts off, if you want to move, say, a night shift and do it another time, normally what you will have to do is arrange a like-for-like swap with another doctor on the rota so that that shift still gets worked. And in these circumstances, it's your responsibility to do that as the doctor. Now, taking a step back, your annual leave allowance is your own, and it's completely up to you to decide how you want to take it, or perhaps how you want to spend it. What I've most commonly used it for is to attend events, conferences, or courses that could not come out of other allowances, things like study leave budget, as well as the occasional social or life event that I wanted to go to, or indeed in one post where I didn't really have any courses, events, or life stuff going on to attend, I just simply took Mondays or Fridays off for like 6 weeks, which was actually pretty great. It meant I only worked 4-day weeks for a little over a month. It was much more reinvigorating than I expected. In the general case, my personal advice would be to spend your annual leave in such a way that it maximizes your continuous number of days off. Because to me, at least, it makes sense that if you're relying on that annual leave to rest, recuperate, then taking your annual leave next to either weekends or 0 days that you might have makes more sense rather than just dotting them in the middle of weeks. There's also a specific case about bank holidays that's worth noting for new doctors, which is that if you are due to work on a bank holiday at any time in the day on that bank holiday, then in that case you are entitled to a day off in lieu to replace that bank holiday. So you can be rotated to work as normal without enhancements or any other condition that may be applied. You are simply entitled to a day off in lieu, which replaces the public holiday. Now, it does get really complicated with the specifics, but just to close out, if you are not able to take all of your leave for whatever reason, basically as soon as you realise that you're not going to be able to take it, then raise it with your supervisor and with your rota coordinator, because everyone needs to be aware, effort needs to be made for you to take all of that annual leave. But there are 2 other things that could happen. The first is that you may be allowed to take some or all of whatever annual leave you've got remaining forward into your next post assuming that it's with the same employer. This won't always be possible, but sometimes it is possible to reach agreement on this. So if you can't take it, for example, during your first rotation for whatever reason, despite everybody trying, you might be able to take some days forward. So the other alternative is that it simply might be essentially sold back to your employer and paid at your normal rate for however many days you've not been able to. But always, 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 any issues taking your leave, BMA representative, guardian of safe working, educational or clinical supervisor, loop in people as quickly as possible so that efforts can be made to make sure you take it. If you're new doctors that are going to be joining us in August and you've got any questions that you would like me to talk about or address here on the channel, then please do let me know. Take care, guys.